I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. This is the Billionaire Brown Experience. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, this is the Billionaire Brown Experience. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. And I have a great guest here that I want to introduce everybody to. Her name is Cheryl Meyer. Say hello to everybody, Cheryl.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're happy to have you. We know that we're going to be talking about some really, today is all about educating the people. I know you're really big on talking about health and toxins and all of that good stuff. And you also want to share your story. So I guess a great place that we can start is, what is your story?
Well, I just turned 69 5 years ago. I was an entrepreneur. I had my own business. And one morning, I couldn't get out of bed. I hurt from top to toe. And the next day, it was no different. Everything in my body hurt. All my muscles, all my joints, my head. So I go to the doctor. And she said, I don't know what's wrong with you. I think it's in your head. So this is not in my head. And as it continued to go into several weeks, I went back to her again. And she said, I don't know what this is, but I can give you steroids. Well, I'm not big on taking medication if there's another way. So since she didn't know what it was and she didn't seem to be running tests, it set me off on a 5-year journey to figure out what the heck was wrong with me and what was I going to do about it. And I started listening to a lot of symposiums online by something called the functional medical community, which is a whole new paradigm in medicine. And I listened to things on the adrenals and the gut and the liver and thyroid, and it all kept coming back to I was pretty sure I had autoimmune disease, and if I had autoimmune disease, they kept coming to the conclusion that it started with something called leaky gut. So I started looking into what was leaky gut. Leaky gut has many causes, but the two big ones are toxins and stress. Well, since I had my own business, I knew I had a lot of stress. I thought that was a good thing. It made me get things done. But I was constantly being chased by a tiger. And I knew from a test that I had done with my doctor that my cortisol was very low. And cortisol is what pumps you when you're stressed. But I wasn't to disease level, so they were sort of like, what to do? So I thought that might be one of my first issues. And then I started, what I could do on my own while I started to look for a functional doctor was to start researching toxins. So let me stop here and tell you what a functional doctor is.
Please.
My doctor that I did find is Yale educated. She is a full MD, but she got sick. Like most of the people in these symposiums I was listening to, they got sick and they couldn't cure themselves. So they went on for additional certification in functional medicine. A conventional doctor will listen to you. They'll take your first symptom and they put you into a round hole and a round peg and they pop out a pill. And the pill will make you feel better, but it doesn't cure anything. When you go to a functional doctor, the first thing they say is, you're sitting on a tack. This is not really, but you're sitting on a tack. Let's go find that tack. What's causing you to have those symptoms? Let's go find it. So the approach is totally different. From a 6-minute conventional doctor appointment to a 40-minute on a normal basis functional doctor appointment, we started exploring everything about my body that I had no idea about. And it ended up that I actually do have autoimmune disease. But one thing that would have made it difficult for conventional medicine is there's 130 of them, and I have a little bit from each category. So what I actually ended up being called was undefined autoimmune disease. But it was causing me pain in my joints, pain in my muscles. My thyroid was out of whack. Functional doctor doesn't just look at what the pituitary says to the thyroid, it says what the thyroid then says to the rest of your adrenals. And so all of those had new information of things that were out of whack and out of balance. And then we started looking for where the pain was really coming from. The first thing we discovered is my body was loaded with heavy toxic metals. So I did a detox for that. Then we discovered my body was loaded with heavy toxic mold. And so I just finished a detox for that. And the whole time that I'm going through these tests and trying to find what the root cause of my illness was, I was looking into toxins through a database that's available by EWG, the Environmental Working Group. They have hundreds of thousands of things in their database where they rate them from 1 to 10. And things like, I didn't really understand what GMOs were or how they were spraying our food with all kinds of toxic pesticides. But I started studying that, so I cleaned up. I started buying organic. Then I started studying what was in my cosmetics. I was spending a fortune for my cosmetics. They were 9s and 10s on the toxic scale. So I cleaned up and started to look for things that were 2 or 1. And I went through all categories looking for all of this stuff until I had replacements for hundreds and hundreds of items in my food, my cosmetics, my over-the-counter drugs, my kitchen, my cleaning supplies, my water. And then I started looking into how was I going to reduce my stress? How was I going to get rid of toxic lack of sleep? What was I going to do about toxic anxiety? I was in a toxic relationship which ended. I was going to find a non-toxic relationship. And finally, I was never a person who liked to exercise. So I looked into what kind of exercise could I do that would eliminate my toxic lack of movement, which was critical to my health. In the meantime, back to the functional doctor, she ran a really interesting test, which was a food sensitivity test. Ends up, I have what I call kryptonite reactions to 18 different foods. And so one of the big things that we did right off the bat that got rid of my pain was I eliminated all these foods. There's a test that can be given to you. Conventional medicine doesn't even really acknowledge sensitivities. They only acknowledge allergies. And when I did my last allergy test with my conventional doctor, the only thing I was allergic to was the tape that held the test on my back. So finding all these sensitivities was incredible, and I had to learn a whole new way of cooking so that I could keep around these things. And they include things like mint and basil and artichokes and green beans and wheat flour, which also is heavily sprayed with a herbicide called glyphosate. And yep, we tested for herbicides and pesticides, and I'm loaded with them. So I have tried to eliminate as much of this stuff as I possibly can. I'm a city girl. Where do I get all these herbicides and pesticides in my body? I guess from my food. But it really opened up my eyes. We are 37th in the world in health, yet we spend more on healthcare than any other country. And our children, for the first time, are not going to live as long as we are. And so I have become a real anti-toxin advocate because I was completely oblivious to all of this until I got sick. And I want to really spread this word to everybody. It's not easy to change what you eat, but it can be done. People say to my husband, and I did find the right guy, by the way, they say to us, aren't you deprived? And we eat really well. We just don't eat the same way that other people eat. And I now cook most of my food so that I know what goes into it so I can control how toxic it is. And it's really been kind of an adventure to figure out how to do this. But the bottom line is I am about 80% better. We're still working on the last things. I'm an onion that keeps getting peeled, and we find things underneath each layer. But I am doing really well. Most of the time, I am pain-free. When you have autoimmune disease, you get things like called flares, where suddenly one of your something triggers you, and then I have to get through that. But they're not nearly as bad as they used to be. And what I've learned about inflammation, which is what is the main thing behind autoimmune disease, is it doesn't just cause autoimmune disease. Inflammation is one of the causes of cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Most of our chronic illness comes from inflammation, strokes. And so I have been doing local speaking in the Los Angeles area to make people aware that there are things that they can do to improve their wellness and to raise healthy children so that they don't have as many sensitivities and they have a better chance at living long and thriving.
Okay,
so
let me ask you this.
I'm here because I want you to know all this. Okay.
You just mentioned Alzheimer's. I was just having a conversation maybe a week or two ago about Alzheimer's and dementia. Do you know the difference between the two?
Not all dementia leads to Alzheimer's. There is dementia that even comes with Parkinson's disease, but it is now believed by the functional research that it all starts in the gut. So having a healthy gut and not having a leaky gut is critically important to all dementia. Alzheimer's itself is now being called diabetes type 3, and they believe there's a connection between sugar and Alzheimer's. And so controlling your sugar, which is a whole chapter in my book, not only helps you with the Alzheimer's, but it helps with Parkinson's and with other things that cause dementia. That's not a technical definition of the difference, but the approach is the same. Just like for autoimmune disease, the approach is the same no matter what they call it. There are nuances that a functional doctor would work with you on, but to start, it's healing your leaky gut. That's the most important thing you can do to control your wellness.
Okay.
So
what is the name of your book again?
No matter what kind of dementia.
What's the
My
name
book is called It Feels Good to Feel Good. Feels good to feel good.
Okay, now.
Learn to eliminate toxins, reverse inflammation.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what is this? Does this, all of what you're talking about, I know you said you feel good. In your book, will I find anything where it talks about the effects on the brain and how the mind works?
No. The book is really, the first part of the book is geared towards autoimmune because that was my target. The major portion of the book goes category by category, tells you what I found and what I replaced it with, and if you don't like my choice, where to research for your own. It does not go into things like the brain. It goes into how to reduce your leaky gut and the toxins in your life.
What is a leaky gut? I've never heard that before. This is the first time that I've ever heard about. You said it like 10 times already. What is a leaky gut?
Right, because it's critical. And I didn't know about this either. Your gut is only one cell thick, the wall of your gut. And so when food goes into your gut, obviously you need to get the nutrition into your blood to nourish your body. And what happens when toxins go into your gut, or when stress aggravates your guts, you don't digest the food particles down to the right size. So they're too big. So then they start to go up against the gut wall, and they start to make little tears in the gut wall. And the first time they go through, your immune system goes, foreigner, don't know what that is. But as they start to go through more regularly, the immune system screams attack because it doesn't recognize them. They don't have the right name tags on them because they're too big, and your body doesn't know how to utilize them. And then to make it even worse, they mimic other tissues in your body. So on me, it was muscles and bones. On somebody else, it might be the thyroid, and you might get Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. Or you might get psoriasis or eczema in your skin. Depending upon where the weakness is in your body, they start to mimic that, and then your immune system goes into overload and starts to attack those tissues as well as not know what to do with the stuff that's in your blood. So your immune system goes into high gear because of leaky gut. How to heal the leaky gut? You have to first eliminate the toxins as much as possible, and then you have to calm your stress down so that your digestive system works the way it's supposed to. And over time, your gut begins to heal itself, and these odd food particles that are too big stop going through little rips in your gut, and then your immune system calms down and stops attacking you.
Okay. Are there any major? Absolutely. Are there any major red flags or signs that, like, are a lot of us do you believe that some of us are walking around with a leaky gut and we don't know it?
I think what happens is